And I can proudly say that not only do we have legislation that specifically refers to single payer, that refers to the Canada Health Act and the principles and values, we also have secured commitments to delivering diabetes medication and contraceptives using a single payer public model. So we've gone beyond just the legislation, and we're going to cover medication as well. This is a historic first. This is a big step forward for universal single payer pharmacare.
And that was Jagmeet Singh in an interview with Vashi Capello, set to air Sunday on CTV's Question Period. So we have a deal on pharmacare, and that means the supply and confidence deal is not done. Let's dig into the pharmacare deal and the politics behind it with the front bench panel. Sabrina Grover was a federal Liberal candidate in the 2021 election. She's now principal at Shakti Strategies. Melanie Paradis is the former communications director to Aaron O'Toole. She's now the president of Texture Communications, and former Ontario NDP MPP Gurratan Singh. He is now the vice president of Crestview Strategies. He's also the brother of federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. We are missing Rachel Aiello, who has some well-deserved time off, but happy Friday to you all. And Sabrina, let's start with you on this one. It's a big deal politically for the Liberals because it does keep that supply and confidence agreement in place. So how critical is it for them?
Definitely positive for the Liberals to have that sense of stability with the confidence and supply agreement going forward. I also think with any of the policies that have come out of the confidence and supply agreement, I think the Liberals have actually been able to be really good at marketing that as a win for themselves, more than I think that the NDP has. So I think, especially with this pharmacare deal, that specific inclusion of contraception is going to be really important for the Liberals as a marketing tool. It's going to be really important as a wedge issue with the Conservatives. So I think there's a lot of positive things to have come out of this in terms of stability and the way that they're going to, be attractive to voters. But I think at the end of the day, there's going to have to be kind of some questions about at what point does the confidence and supply agreement become no longer valuable to either side, both in terms of defining their own agenda and kind of becoming their own party for the voters if we're looking to either a fall 2024 election or a spring 2025 election.
Gurratan, you can speak to that, but also I wanted to sort of reference what your brother said earlier. It is a big win for the NDP, and it is historic, but it's going to take some time to actually get into place. So tell me why that's good enough for the NDP.
Well, let me start off by giving my brother Jagmeet Singh, the NDP, a round of applause because this is a huge win, not just for the NDP, but for all of Canadians. We're talking about the largest expansion to healthcare since its inception, between dental care, providing 9 million people with access to dental care, and now pharmacare, which lays the foundation to a single-player universal pharmacare system. But immediately, we're talking about giving people access to birth control and to diabetes medication. So this is, initially folks were saying there was a delay, and the NDP said, yes, okay, we'll accommodate the delay as long as we get more for people. And we're seeing that. The NDP fought hard. And let's be very clear on this. The wins that we're seeing right now are because of the NDP. Just 2 years ago, the Liberals and Conservatives voted no to pharmacare. But now the NDP has used their power. They've used their ability to push the Liberals to bring in this huge win for Canadians. And I think today's a day we should all be celebrating because of this huge expansion to our healthcare system.
Melanie, the Conservatives have not really been supportive of this, but because it's going to help Canadians, can the Tories really be against it?
Well, I think it remains to be seen what the legislation looks like next week, what all the details are, how much this is going to cost is going to be a big consideration, of course. We'll see that in the budget. But ultimately, this is really a win for Jagmeet Singh. I think that he played his cards very well in the past couple of weeks, especially. The communications that the NDP have been doing on this have been very strong. I think it'll be interesting once we see the details of exactly how this is going to roll out. And keep in mind, the biggest concern here is a government that is responsible for ArriveCan, that's responsible for inflating a project that was supposed to cost $80,000 and ended up costing like $60 million. Are these the same people who are overseeing the pharmacare rollout? Are they going to be overseeing how this money is being spent and how it's being budgeted. I think ultimately that's likely the biggest concern facing next week's rollout of this legislation.
Yeah, and the Auditor General will likely be keeping a close eye on this one as well. Sabrina, the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report did say that in the first year it will cost $11 billion and then increase to $13.4 billion. The Liberals are trying to get the government's finances in order. But is this the type of cost that they can actually really sell to people? Because it's a tough needle to thread, isn't it?
I think that there are certain costs that Canadians absorb that inherently benefit them. And I think like one of the examples is childcare, right? I think if you started to go after the costs of childcare on the Conservative bench or on the Tory bench, that's going to come across quite negatively because it's improved the lives of Canadians drastically and it's actually benefited the economy in the end. And I think that that same principle applies for something like pharmacare tied to the health system. I think what the Liberals are going to have to do within the budget when it comes to that healthcare spending specifically is look at where else they're going to need to add and how they're going to manage those costs and how they're going to transfer some of those responsibilities over to the provinces because healthcare across the country is under massive strain, largely under Conservative governments. And so I think that that is going to be more important to Canadians on healthcare than the cost of pharmacare is actually going to end up being in the budget.
Goderton, I was talking to Anne McGrath earlier on, and she had said that, you know, BC, Manitoba, they look like they're on board. We've already seen, though, that both Alberta and Quebec said if something comes in terms of a universal pharmacare, single-payer pharmacare program, they want to opt out right away, and they want the money instead. Do you think that this is truly going to be what the NDP had envisaged if you do have some of these provinces that say they're going to opt out, but they want the money still?
I got to start off by saying your pronunciation of my name right now, brother, top notch. So much love to you for that.
I've been working. I've been working it.
I see that you've been working. But this is how universal healthcare started, right? We started with one province. We had Tommy Douglas, the predecessors to the NDP had this, and the NDP had this vision of making sure we build a compassionate society where no one has to go poor for having to get access to the healthcare they need to get better. And we're now going to see that process play out federally. And I would challenge the Conservative premiers who are against providing medication to those people who are struggling in their province. They're going to have a really tough argument to make to say that seniors, people who are in socioeconomically tough positions, who are currently cutting their pills in half to get by, don't deserve the medication they need to get better. Also, economically, we know this is going to be a huge impact because we're talking about preventative healthcare effectively, because people are now going to be able to get medication they need that hopefully stops them from having to interface with the emergency room because they're getting that care up front. So I think there's a very strong argument. This is the process of pushing for this really important policy. And just like we went through this before in the past with universal healthcare, we're going to go through it again with pharmacare. And I'm hopeful that that the policy that will help people will win out in the end.
Melanie, do you think that that's fair criticism of some of the premiers who, some people are saying, hey, it's on Conservative premiers here, or do you sort of look at it more like, well, why should they have this imposed on them?
It's not just Conservative premiers. I mean, I think if you look at British Columbia, they've had birth control covered there in that province for many years. So this shouldn't really be a one-size-fits-all option. I think some of the provinces are saying, like, we already have an element of this. We already have some coverage. How is this going to work for us within the current system that we already have? And I think that there needs to be flexibility in how that's rolled out, and the provinces should absolutely have a say.
Sabrina, last word to you on this. Do you think that not just everyone around Parliament Hill, because you look at this, and I think a number of people are breathing a bit of a sigh of relief that this is finally done and dusted. We can sort of put it in the background. But I think a number of people are also looking at this and saying, okay, so what is the supply and confidence agreement really going to do now going forward? Do you agree with that?
I think that's probably a question more on the minds of NDP MPs than I think it is on the minds of Liberal MPs. I think if I was a Liberal MP, I'd be more focused on kind of like what is the next step for the budget and how do we refocus on affordability as the key message and get in front of Albertans, well, including Albertans, Canadians on that message. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, they really need to be happy that this is going to provide some stability, but restart to carve out that identity of like, what is the Liberal Party doing for Canadians, and kind of implement some of those policies or restate some of those policies that have been so successful in the past and have, you know, improved the lives of Canadians. So I think that, you know, whether or not the NDP is going to consider what's next for the confidence and supply agreement on their side, is there anything left to push for? I mean, that remains to be seen.
Okay, so I'll put that to Gorot. Is there anything left in this? I think I've got about 30 seconds left before we have to take a break.
Well, we know that the rollout of dental care was being done in a process that was going to be provided over a couple of years. We know that we need to get this legislation forward, and we need to make sure that we're actually bringing in those immediate policies that provide people access to birth control and diabetes medication. So the work isn't done. And the most important thing is, as long as we're helping Canadians, the NDP are going to continue to use their power to push the Liberals to do so.
Okay, we're going to leave that one right there for